South Africa waits with bated breath. Not for an earthquake, not for a storm, but for a secret. A secret so sinister, so expertly concealed, that its abrupt unveiling now threatens to tear through the nation's very soul like a knife through cloth. During the early morning hours before sunrise, while the city streets were still deserted and the Union buildings loomed like a slumbering giant above the Pretoria horizon, there was one solitary envelope that made its way to Parliament. Within it, an affidavit, not rumor-mongering, but a file of names, dates, and transactions. A trail of paper as keen and icy as snapped glass. The writer was Mkhwanazi, a maverick opposition leader whose reputation was forged on revealing what others were too scared to handle. And this time around, he has not only dropped a headline, he has dropped a bomb. For decades, Jacob Zuma has been the public face of South Africa's darkest scandals, state capture, tender corruption, and deals brokered in smoky backrooms while ordinary citizens waited in line for work and electricity cut out in the townships. His presidency became a chapter the nation longed to close. People believed that the skeletons had already been dragged into the sunlight. But Mkhwanazi's revelation says otherwise. It says the skeletons were never in the closet, they were sitting at the cabinet table. And here's the part that chills everyone from Cape Town to Limpopo. What Mkhwanazi claims is not a minor infraction or political misstep. If true, it's evidence of a shadow government, a cabal of fixers, businessmen, and politicians working behind the scenes while the nation slept. Agreements struck not for, but against, the people. Choices that dictated everything from billion-rand deals to who protected the country's security. On the walls of Parliament, the tension hums. Outside, hashtags burst onto phones like wildfire. Hashtag Zuma exposed. Hashtag Mkhwanazi bombshell. In the township, individuals stand in groups before radios and television sets, listening and shaking their heads. In the suburbs, WhatsApp groups run over with outrage and incredulity. Is this finally the moment the truth comes out, or another scandal gobbled up by the system? What nobody knows, as yet, is how far the waves of this affidavit will travel. Will it bring down big men? Will it divide the ruling party in half? Or will it disappear like so many previous exposés, leaving nothing but bitterness and fatigue in its wake? One thing is certain, South Africa is no longer waiting for answers. It is preparing to take the hit. And as the nation waits with bated breath, one question lingers like thunder preceding a storm: if Mkhwanazi is speaking the truth, then what else has been concealed in the dark? The country shudders. Not at an earthquake, not at a tempest, but at a revelation so forceful it risks ripping apart the fabric of its democracy. What Mkhwanazi has let loose is not merely another breaking news story of dodgy tenders and envelopes slipped under tables. His signed, stamped, sworn affidavit outlines the contours of something much more sinister, a shadowy parallel system running as an underground government. Not in the sunlit halls of the Union buildings, but in the smoke-filled backrooms where the fate of a country is supposedly bought, sold, and settled. According to Mkhwanazi's documents, Jacob Zuma didn't merely benefit from corruption, he orchestrated it. There are whispers of high-level clandestine deals with businessmen and politicians, secret understandings about who would be appointed to cabinet posts, influence over billion-rand tenders, and even alleged compromises of national security. This isn't just about money. This is about control of the state, control of the economy, control of who rises and who falls. If Mkhwanazi is telling the truth, then for years key decisions regarding South Africa's future were not made openly by elected leaders, but behind closed doors by Zuma's devoted clique of elite loyalists, a government within a government. And then came the eruption. Within hours of Mkhwanazi's revelations, hashtags like hashtag Zuma exposed and hashtag Mkhwanazi bombshell scorched across Twitter, Facebook, and WhatsApp groups. Anger, disbelief, and a grim sense of déjà vu flooded timelines. Outside government buildings in Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Durban, small but furious crowds began to gather spontaneously. Handwritten placards read, "No more lies," and "Justice for South Africa." Protesters chanted, "We want answers." Inside Parliament, chaos. Opposition MPs pounded on desks calling for immediate investigations, impeachment hearings, and even criminal prosecution. In the ANC benches, MPs sat in factionalized and somber silence, looking around, not knowing which direction the wind was blowing. Some were whispering that the party had to close ranks behind Zuma to save the ANC's reputation. Others were murmuring that Zuma was a liability who would torpedo the whole ship. Fresh wounds reopened, factions hardened, and as ever, Zuma's supporters fought back. They called Mkhwanazi's revelations propaganda, a smear campaign, a last-ditch attempt to destroy a man who had already endured years of legal battles. They accused Mkhwanazi of being a puppet of secret forces bent on destabilizing South Africa and rewriting history. But their denials are not calming the storm. If anything, they are fueling it. People are asking why Zuma's defenders always attack the messenger instead of answering the message. What exactly are they afraid of? For most South Africans, this is more than just another headline. It is a never-healing wound, now ripped open. It is the potholes on the road that were never filled, the unending electricity outages, the unemployment queues that never seemed to get shorter, all the while elites got richer behind walls. This scandal is personal because it is personal. Political analysts are already referring to it as a watershed moment. Wits University professor Nelly Mkhwanazi informed journalists, these revelations go deeper than previous scandals because they attack the very heart of power. If true, they suggest that the government of South Africa was at least partly circumvented by undisclosed cabals loyal to Zuma. And the timing could not be worse. The nation is already staggering under rolling blackouts, skyrocketing unemployment, and rising poverty. Trust in government is eroding fast. Another Zuma scandal, exposed so dramatically, could destabilize the political system at its core. If Mkhwanazi's allegations are proven, they won't just embarrass Zuma, they could redefine how South Africans view his entire presidency, not just as flawed but as fundamentally corrupt from the ground up. It may also be a moment of no return for the ANC. Back Zuma and lose the people, or dump him and risk splitting the party. And here's where the tension builds. Behind the scenes, reports parliamentary sources in leaks, is a clandestine meeting of top ANC officials. No cameras, no press, just murmurs. On the agenda, how to keep the Mkhwanazi bombshell from lighting a full-blown uprising.